Well, my next guest is a pioneer trend strategist. He is the author of the national bestseller Trends 2000 and Trends Tracking, both put out by Warner Books. And he's the publisher of the internationally circulated Trends Journal newsletter. His name is Gerald Celente. Gerald, it is an absolute honor and pleasure to have you on the Follow the Money weekly radio program, sir.
Oh, thanks for having me on, Jerry.
I love how you describe yourself as a political atheist, and I'm assuming that means that you're not a lapdog of either of America's two corrupt political parties. That's what I assume.
You assume correctly. I don't know how any adult could follow their leaders when they should really be thinking for themselves. We just give the diagnosis. We look at life for what it is, events, trends. We don't say what's right or wrong, good or bad. We just say what is. It's like going to the doctor. You don't care what his religion or her religion is or what their beliefs are in terms of politics. You just want the best diagnosis you can get without an ideology attached to it. And so that when we look at issues and events, that's the way we look at them, just as you would go to a doctor.
Gerald, the U.S. economy and its fiat currency, the U.S. dollar, have been in an absolute free fall for the last several years. There were a few people who saw this coming. You were among that select group. Your economic forecasts were called pessimism porn by the clueless mainstreamers. Now, a whole slew of Johnny-come-latelys like Paul Krugman at the New York Times are beginning to see the light, and they're talking about this coming depression. Gerald, you've been at the head of the pack in calling this economic collapse, and our audience knows better than to listen to the mindless mainstreamers who don't even understand the most basic of economic concepts. Just tell our audience, just be brutal, and tell us the facts. Where do you see America going from here economically?
We're going to see the crash of 2010. This was our 2009 forecast for 2010. An economic crash will happen before the clock strikes 2011. You mentioned my being called pessimism porn. You mentioned Krugman. It was the New York Times, by the way, that refers to our work as that. But now that their boy is talking about depression, then the Princeton, Harvard, Yale Club, the white shoe boys speak, then it's okay. I've taken, by the way, to calling the New York Times. They love it in all of their arrogance to call themselves the paper of record. Well, it's the toilet paper of record. If I had a record as bad as they have in my past 30 years of trend forecasting, I would have been drummed out of business. But there's one big, the Washington Beltway circle jerk of all of them telling how great they are and promoting their flunkies and their flacks. People better get ready for the worst. This is a perfect grasshopper and ant scenario as we're in August and moving toward the fall and then the winter. People should really be preparing for the worst, watching where your money is, because one of the things that we fear is there's going to be more terror strikes against the United States. They're leading us closer to wars. I mention that because when they do happen, we believe they're going to close the banks. The last time when terror struck, they closed Wall Street. If you had certificates of deposit, you couldn't deposit them. Wall Street was closed. I tried cashing mine out because I was prepared for 9/11, so when it happened, living north of Ground Zero, I was ready to get out of here if they hit the nuclear power plant at Indian Point, which is just north of Ground Zero. So I wanted to have my money, my guns, and my gold, and I was ready to get away from here. But the point being is I could not get any money, only my cash on hand. This time we believe they're going to close the banks, and they're going to devalue the currency just as they did when they called the bank holiday in 1933, when they devalued the dollar by raising the price of gold. And, of course, in those days, the dollar was pegged to gold. So what we're telling people now, Jerry, is really prepare, because only the strong are going to survive. Those that are looking to government to help them or anyone else, they're making a losing bet. And when I say that, people need to get prepared physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Be in the best shape you can in all dimensions. Hope doesn't cut it. Hope is the most negative word in the metaphysical dictionary. How about hope and change you can believe in? You want to use those as campaign slogans? And that's all they are. So people need to do more than hope. They have to really, really get themselves moving. And that's what the Trends Journal does, by the way. It's not about fear by saying there's a storm ahead or dangers lie here and others lie there. It's about empowerment, seeing what's ahead, observing the future, and then taking the necessary steps to move in those directions.
Gerald, America is continuing to wage its global war on terror on several major fronts. We have Pakistan, we have Afghanistan, we got Iraq, we got, of course, this new looming threat. It's not new, it's been around for a couple of years, but this looming threat of war with Iran. And in your latest quarterly forecasting newsletter, the Trends Journal, which I read this week, and it's excellent, by the way, but in your most recent issue, you spent a great deal of time talking about a great war that you believe lies on the horizon. Talk to our audience about the threats of the impending great war that you see that lies ahead and how this war will be different in terms of past wars, in terms of citizen preparedness.
The great war that we fear coming is that what we said when they began these massive bailouts is that when all else fails, what they do is they take you to war. All you have to go back is to the Great Depression. It's the same scenario building now. And Iran, we fear, is going to be the flashpoint. We heard Fidel Castro warn recently that when the United States and NATO and other UN countries begin to board Iranian ships to see what's on board, that's going to be the kind of fuse that ignites this war. And there's no global war on terror. This is a war on the people's pocketbooks. It's being enriched by the military-industrial complex that Dwight D. Eisenhower warned us about, and that Major General Smedley Butler, the most decorated Marine in history until his death, called war a racket. And it's a racket. The United States, what did we lose? About 3,000 people on 9/11. So what do? Seek revenge by killing several 100,000 in Iraq and Afghanistan? And now into Pakistan? And then they wonder why they want to attack the United States? Listen, let's get this straight, all adults out there who have a brain to listen with and ears to hear. The reason we were attacked on 9/11 had nothing to do with what George Bush said. They hate our freedom and liberty. Oh, no, it couldn't be about America's foreign policy. Current events form future trends. Look what's going on now. The U.S. just cut a deal for $60 billion, that's right, with a B, of armaments going to that wonderful democracy, Saudi Arabia. You think a lot of people don't like that live over there? You think that has anything to do with it? Or do you think sending predator drones into Pakistan and wiping out innocent people gets people just a little bit uptight? So what we're telling people now is prepare for this. Prepare and take measures. Also become part of the 20% solution. Stop it before it happens. This is not inevitable. Stand up, speak out. And if you believe in war, if you believe in more destruction, send yourself, send your wife, send your kids, and go fight these wars. Because we have these huge military bases over there in Iraq, bigger than most cities, the size of most cities in America in terms of square miles. They could use your help. We're outsourcing all these services now to Halliburton and other military contractors. They need somebody to clean the sheets, to make meals, to wash the floors. If you really are in favor of war, there's a job for you, there's a job for your wife, there's a job for your kids. And send your money. Empty out your checkbook if you believe in these wars, because I don't want them taking it from me, and I know the score. So people better realize they should stand up and speak out. That's the best evasive action to take right now, because this war is going to be different than all other wars. There's going to be a war of massive destruction, of weapons of mass destruction, of biological warfare of destruction. This isn't going to be a war where it's waged on open battlefields. And let's get something else really clear. The U.S. military are losers. They can't win in Kandahar or Marjah. This is the country that defeated the Germans at the Battle of the Bulge and drove the stake of the American flag through the heart of the Japanese at Iwo Jima. And they can't even win these little wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, fighting soldiers with no shoes. They're losers. The American government is a loser in everything they're doing. Healthcare, education, the environment, BP, Katrina. You go down the list. Hey, how about waging a war on drugs? Let's drain the Treasury from another couple of $100 billion to wage losing wars. The best defense is an offense, and the offense is to rebuild America. Close those bases, take that money, and bring it back to this country to start rebuilding it at a time when we need it the most.